Hey, how you doing? It's Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 independent comics, publisher of College of the Dead, The Mermaids, and Chromium Man. Hey, check this out. You know, we did a video about Batgirl yesterday, because of course the movie's been canceled. But there's a lot of blow up on social media, there's a lot of excitement, and there's also a lot of pushback, even in media, from the SJWs that are absolutely going berserk and furious that Batgirl was canceled. They must have had some plan, some agenda, something they were going to do. Let's get into the article. It's in Hollywood Reporter. Before we do, please be sure you're subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Now let's get into it. Batgirl debacle pushes DC back once again. This is coming from Hollywood Reporter. Their Heat Vision section covers a lot of comics-related stuff. Warner Brothers wants to reach the heights of Marvel Studios, they claim, but it lacks the patience and understanding of its characters to ever get there, writes the Hollywood Reporter contributor Richard Newby. Now, Richard may have a point. They don't really have strong leadership at DC's universe. They're trying to get it together, but this is a good choice. You know, Richard is not being open-minded about this. Richard wants the woke Batgirl. Richard wants the woke DC universe, which the only people that want that are the people that want to destroy the DC universe. But tell me if you agree or disagree in the comments below. Now, this art, by the way, is by Adam Hughes. Adam Hughes is phenomenal. Big fan of Adam Hughes' work. That's what the beautiful art is. That's the full page. And they didn't even credit him. They credit DC Comics. You know, just in terms of respecting the talent, you credit the artist. Warner Brothers isn't in the business of making bad movies. At least that's the common refrain on social media now that David Zaslav, chief executive of the newly combined Warner Brothers Discovery, is in charge. What seems to be a more accurate assessment, according to the author, is that Warner Brothers isn't in the business of making movies that aren't guaranteed to line the company's coffers. Wait a minute. That's to say that, yes, of course, the business is not about to risk itself on a woke Batgirl, woke superhero universe movie that ties into Batman, like one of the biggest properties in the world. Because obviously what their hope is that Batman becomes their Spider-Man. So they can reliably do $1 billion on anything that's Batman and anything that comes from anything directly related to Batman, like Joker, for example, which did phenomenal business. So if they do a Batgirl movie, doesn't it make sense that Batgirl has to kind of be in the at least $500 million range? You know, something sort of equivalent to the Batman world, you would think. The cancellation of Batgirl, which we announced yesterday in a video, and Scoob, Holiday Haunt, which until yesterday were both in post-production, no relation to Adam Post, have sent shockwaves through Hollywood. In the case of Batgirl, social media pundits claim the film was shelved because it was so bad it couldn't be released. Well, I'm one of them. And yes, that is what happened. This, of course, operates under the assumption that Warner's hasn't released plenty of bad movies before. That's where do you get that logic from? Bad movies that made money. And it suggests that a regime change at Warner's means we should expect nothing but straight masterpieces from here on out. You know, what's very funny is, like, how do you... The author is trying to defend that, yeah, okay, Batgirl was a terrible woke movie, but at least it was good for what? Inclusion? There's the Marvel Universe, which has a tremendous value, even though they're diminishing the brand of the Marvel Universe, but it still has a lot of value. DC is just a second close behind. So, you know, I mean, they're going to risk that for this? As for Warner's, it said in a statement that the move was due to change in corporate strategy within the studio, thanking its stars, which include Leslie Grace, Michael Keaton, J.K. Simmons, and Brendan Fraser, and directors with funny names, Arbi, Bilall, Fallah, did I pronounce that right? Who were hired off the hot success of 2020's Bad Boys for Life and who'd recently received more good notices for directing episodes of this summer's Disney Plus series Ms. Marvel, which also isn't doing that well. The Hollywood Reporter noted that the $90 million Batgirl, and by the way, that $90 million budget has been discussed in terms of anywhere from $70 million to all the way up to $140 million without final editing costs without a promotional cost. So they'd have to invest more money in this movie and take more of a chance on it. It had one test screening, supposedly, with unfinished edits that received a middling but passable grade. This type of score is often typical for movies with unfinished effects, including the first It, which wound up grossing over $700 million in Warner's. If they thought this movie had any chance of grossing $700 million, it absolutely would be released. That wouldn't even be a question. The real quote, the quote, real reason behind the cancellation, sources told The Hollywood Reporter, was Zavslav's determination that the film would recoup more of its budget as a tax write-down than as a theatrical or HBO Max release. That's an interesting point, because if they say, hey, listen, this movie is a total loss, then they can go and play all sorts of games with the costs of the film, which is to say that it's not going to be, $90 million if they add in costs for offices and other related costs and God knows what they would stick in there. They could say, well, actually, we lost $200 million on this movie, which might mean, say, $100 million cuts off their taxable income. So it seems plausible that a DC film with Bat in the title, let alone one that brings back Michael Keaton as Batman, would have been a financial failure. Would not have been a financial failure. But to play devil's advocate, let's say that it wasn't a major success in luring subscribers, because this film was supposed to lure subscribers to HBO Max. And what's interesting about that is, boy, you better have a blockbuster. You better have something people want. You can't put out average content for a streaming service and think that that's going to sell a subscription to a service, a streaming service. It's not going to. It's got to be good enough that people are going to say, oh my God, I love this movie. This is really cool. I hope they're going to get more movies out like this, and make it an event. If it's not a big movie, it's not an event. Part of the former Warner Media Jason Kilar CEO's strategy was to create middle-budget films for HBO Max that didn't need to be blockbuster hits, but that would expand the DC universe and allow more filmmakers to add their spin on it. That's partly why Jason Kilar was thrown out of working for Warner Media. He no longer works for them. They're not interested in what his strategy was. An Afro-Latina-led Batgirl movie directed by filmmakers of Moroccan descent and starring a transgender Asian woman, Arbi Aquino, would have generated some positive buzz for the studio that wants to assure its audience that it's committed to diversity. I mean, sure, you could do that. I mean, if you're trying to make money, you might not do that, but if you wanted to assure an audience that you're committed to diversity and not the brand, you don't get this. You don't get Adam Hughes level work by showing people you're committed to diversity. You get it by executing at a high level and delivering beautiful work. If tens of millions in budget can be granted to white filmmakers whose films don't generate mountains of revenue, then surely a nearly completed film with built-in audience should at least be given a shot. No, because it's... What do you think? Put it in the comments below. It's a gamble. Why, in the name of all that is super for superheroes, why would a film studio take a chance like that? It's great that they got control of the DC universe when they merged with Warner Brothers, but why would they take a chance? I don't even follow the logic. Of course, the argument is that the risk of Batgirl wasn't worth the possible reward. Yet so frequently seems that the minority-led and directed films are the projects considered risks. Well, I mean, whatever the numbers don't lie. A friend of mine once told me about that. Another business. And she was like, hey, listen, Adam, the numbers don't lie. It is what it is. And I'm like, wow, that's true, very simple, but it's true. The numbers are what they are. The cancellation of Batgirl is just another mark on the Hollywood myth that films led by women and people of color don't make money. Marvel chairman Ike Perlmutter famously thought the Black Panther and Captain Marvel as risks, blocking them from being made for years. We saw how those turned out. Yeah, well, that's true. Black Panther did do big business. However, Black Panther was promoted for the market as a black character superhero film, and as the first, which it was not. But, of course, Blade was the first. But, so what? is Batgirl going to get that sort of support? It's the first female superhero, and as a result, everybody must go, or you're racist. I mean, not going to happen. Captain Marvel had some very funny things going on with their financial numbers, particularly with the Asian market, particularly with China. And we could get into a whole other separate video about that, but suffice to say, Captain Marvel is no fan favorite for anybody. And it is a risk. If it didn't work, why do it? And Ike Perlmutter, if it wasn't for Ike Perlmutter, there'd be no Marvel studio. He's the one that put the money in and backed the success of Marvel and fought to protect Marvel with Avi Arad. And great that they did, because the franchises could live on. What's risky about a $90 million Batgirl movie, which, by the way, it could be significantly more money than that, and that's even before promoting it. Not every superhero movie could be a world-ending epic. Needs to be a world-ending epic. Okay. Well, I mean, it's a superhero movie, and you do need to have high stakes. According to accounts from the test screening, Batgirl was a low-stakes superhero origin story with style and strong performances, not unlike Batgirl screenwriter Christina Hodson's Birds of Prey, which was awful. Birds of Prey was awful. It wasn't well done. It wasn't good. It was awful. So why would they want more awful? DC is still trying to recover from Birds of Prey. If a Batgirl movie with Michael Keaton was considered too big a risk for Warner Brothers Discovery, that doesn't bode well for the previously announced in-development projects. In-development in film, by the way, means nothing. It means, yeah, we're kind of working on it. Like Black Canary, Static, Our Man, Plastic Man, and Zatanna. I mean, look, just because films, of course they're in development. There's all sorts of projects that are in development. In development doesn't mean it's in production. In production also, especially when it comes to Batgirl, doesn't mean it's going to get released even. Usually it is, though, when it's in production. With Wonder Twins already canceled, thank goodness, after the casting process, it seems that Zaslav has a lack of imagination when it comes to the variety of character, tones, and genres at his disposal. A lack of imagination. They're trying to turn around the DC universe and turn it into something where it's like the Marvel universe, like they did in comics, where people want to see every film and they can follow story and continuity from film project to film project and episode to episode, so that it can be something that mushrooms into something tremendous. You can do that, but not with like little crazy side projects all over the place. You just can't. Warner Brothers wants so badly to be where Marvel Studios is, but it lacks the patience, according to the author here, and understanding of its characters to get there. It wants billion-dollar hits without making $300 million hits first. It wants all the marquee characters assembled without building up a world of supporting B and C level characters that audiences care about. It wants the easy money, which should that thinking continue, will prove to be the death of the DCEU. All right, well, I will say this. Yes, the individual superhero films, like with Marvel, were strong, and as a result, it built momentum, and they had crossovers, and it built up to the Avengers as a group project. And DC does need to think about how are they going to do that, or they may try their own strategy. But when you build up an audience for individual characters in separate franchises, in separate films, of course, when you put them together then in a collected film, if you're able to really do that, then you get the success of the Avengers or some percentage of it. It would be phenomenal for them to be able to do that. That's a multi-year strategy. They have to think about that. Do they have the patience to do that? Who knows? Warner Brothers has had access to DC's fantastic library of characters since the 1970s and can't even manage to release a Batgirl movie, let alone get a modern Superman franchise soaring. There's been changes in ownership. I'm going to put a link to the article in the comments below, or above the comments, so you can kind of go ahead and see where this came from. I'll also link Adam Hughes' beautiful artwork as well and give him the credit he deserves, and see what you think. And let me know what you think in the comments below. Was it too risky to release Batgirl, or should they have just said, oh, what the hell, as long as we can push the woke agenda, let's just throw money and resources at anything, including this. Let me know what you think. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. I appreciate that very much. It helps me out. And I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.